welcome to my YouTube channel. So here today we are going to continue with invertebrates. We are going to look at Phylum Annelida. So Phylum Annelida, these are simply segmented worms. So as you can see, they have segments like that. So these are what we call the Phylum Annelida. So it is composed of classes which we call Oligochaeta. We have the Polychaeta. We also have the class Hirudinea. We are going to dive deeper into this, but first let's just look at the general characteristics. Number one, we have already talked about it, which is they are segmented worms. That's the first thing. They also have cylindrical bodies, so their bodies resemble a cylinder. So they have cylindrical bodies with segments. So they have cylindrical bodies with segments that appears like rings. So you can see that those segments appears like rings. So just as I have shown you how the diagram is, they will appear like wings like that. So all these, so they will appear like rings. So the inside them, they have circular and longitudinal muscles that are used for locomotion. So if you look at them, they look like something like this. Then inside they have circular as well as longitudinal muscles that help them in locomotion, or rather movement. So how is this possible? So they will be able to produce motion by the alternate, meaning to say opposite, contraction of the circular and longitudinal muscles. So they will be able to interchange. There will be the circular and the longitudinal muscles will be able to interchange, thereby aiding it to move. So they will be able to move with these alternate motion of the circular and the longitudinal muscle. So that is basically how they are able to produce movement. So their reproduction is both sexual and asexual. Sexual and asexual. So they are mostly hermaphroditic. What does this mean? In simpler terms, this simply means to say they have both male and female reproductive parts. That means to say they can be able to fertilize themselves, but they mostly prefer, so like for example the earthworm, the sexual part is the clitorum, which is this part. So they contain both the male and the female reproductive parts. So now what they mostly do is that they will be able to fuse with another earthworm like that, store the sperms that the earthworm has. It's more like they will exchange the sperms, and then those sperms will be able to fertilize the other by introducing the female part like that. So that is how it works. So they will exchange sperms and then they will be able to fuse with those sperms like that. So that is hermaphroditic. Very important term. So hermaphroditic simply means to say they have both the male and the female parts, reproductive parts, not just any parts but reproductive parts. So they also have a well developed digestive system. So those are some of the characteristics before we move on to other parts. So these other parts are that they are further divided into these groups, which we are going to dive deeper into. We have the Polychaeta, the Oligochaeta, and Hirudinea. Each of them have got a different way they are. So let's begin with the Oligochaeta. So oligo simply means to say fewer. So they have fewer setae. So these ones have very few let's even say very few setae. Like let's bring in an image. So the example of Oligochaeta is what we are going to call an earthworm. So what is setae? So this is those small spikes. These are what we call setae. So they have small setae or tiny bristles on them on most segments. So they just have a few. So the other diagram that we can have, do we have any setae here? We don't have. So we have a few, not this one, but yeah. So these are what we refer to as setae. So they have very few setae like that. So they have very few setae. So that's why they are referred to as Oligochaeta. So they do not have a well-developed head. So as you can see, it's not that different. They do not have a well-developed head and eyes, or rather no developed head, no well-developed head, no well-developed head and sensory part. So remember, the earthworm is a very good example of this. So the number of segments is, so these are the segments. The number of segments is that they have about 100 to 175 number of segments. So these are the number of segments, and this structure is the sexual part of the earthworm, which is the Oligochaeta. We have the clitorum. So the clitorum is the sexual part of the earthworm. So we have 100 part segments like that, 100 to 175 parts. So mostly earthworms will feed on, they swallow the soil. So when they swallow the soil, they are able to digest the organic matter contained in the soil. So the organic matter, we might be looking at some leaves, we have a lot of things. So they will be able to swallow the soil and digest the organic matter from there. So these, just as we said, they have fewer setae, or rather fewer bristles. Others will just tell you that they do not have bristles, but they have fewer bristles like that. So remember how they produce their motion, the contraction of the circular and longitudinal muscles, which in other words, if you remember from your grade 12, we call that peristosis. So through peristosis, they are able to undergo movement, which is just the contraction of the circular and longitudinal muscles. So moving on, let's look at what we call Polychaeta. So these are also called, the Polychaeta are also called bristleworms. So these have got a lot of setae or bristles. So these are the setae that we are talking about. So they have a lot of setae, or rather bristles. So their characteristic is that they have a well-developed head, as you can see. So they have a well-developed head. So we are looking at Polychaeta. We have moved from Oligochaeta, but now we are looking at Polychaeta. So remember, poly means many, so that's why Polychaeta has got a lot of bristles. So we have talked about the fact that they have a developed head. They also have the eyes. With eyes, they also have an antenna, as you have seen, and they also have a sensory pulp. So they are able to sense properly. So they have sensory pulps like that. So those are some of the things. So they have a lot of bristles. So these bristles are now what we call parapodia. So they have parapodia, they have an antenna, the head and eyes like that. So these setae, also known as the bristles, also called parapodia. So we can, by definition, we can just call, they have numerous bristles called parapodia. The numerous are called parapodia. As you have seen the name marine worms, they are mostly marine. They are found mostly in water. So this is the class Polychaeta. Then last but not the least, we shall talk about Hirudinea. Okay, so this is Hirudinea. Hirudinea is mainly made up of the leeches. So the example that we can have under Hirudinea is that leeches. So these are leeches that are sucking on someone. So they are both aquatic. So they are both aquatic, meaning to say they are found in water, and terrestrial, meaning to say they are found on land. So terrestrial. The other thing is that they suck on both ends. They are able to suck blood on both ends. They feed on both sap and blood. So those are the characteristics of Hirudinea. So those are some of the characteristics of Hirudinea. So now we are going to look at how they locate their prey. So as you can see, we have leeches there. So now, when we look at them, how do they locate their prey is a very important question. So they track their prey by detecting the carbon dioxide gradient. So carbon dioxide gradient. So if you are releasing carbon dioxide, there will be a difference to where they are and where you are. So they will be able to detect that there is a prey nearby. So they will be able to follow using the carbon dioxide gradient. So the other thing that they do is that they are able to inject an anesthetic. So anesthetic is more like something that can be used to ease or remove or reduce pain. So if a person is undergoing surgery, someone will be given an anesthetic to be able to reduce the pain that they are feeling. The other thing is that they are able to release what we call an hirudine. So an hirudine will prevent blood clotting. So if you are sleeping, you cannot notice that they are sucking you. So they will be able to more like inject an anesthetic, which will be able to ease pain or reduce pain, and you will not be able to detect it. Now the hirudine will be able to prevent blood clotting. Remember, if you injure yourself, there will be a clot that will be formed. So to prevent the blood from clotting, they will be able to inject an anticoagulant. An anticoagulant is just something that prevents coagulation, or rather that prevents blood clotting. So that is basically it for the Hirudinea, for the subclass Hirudinea. So that's that for this video. We have looked at the class Oligochaeta, class Polychaeta, and Hirudinea. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you would like, subscribe, and share for more. See you in the next tutorial.